It's my pleasure to introduce our first storyteller. But Sarahi is an inspiration for all of us as well. And she's a resident of East Palo Alto with her husband and her 17-month-old daughter, who I don't know if she's here today.
They had lunch.
They had lunch. Well, that was being here. So she's the founder and the CEO of an app called Dreamers Roadmap. It's a mobile app that helps undocumented students find scholarships for college. Her passion is to connect people to information they need to make them happy and successful. So, turning it over to you.
Thank you. So I first just wanted to thank Elliot and Francisco and the Media Center for the opportunity to give us this space where we can feel safe and not be judged for what we've lived and gone through, but feel supported 100%. So thank you very much. All right. So as Elliot said, I'm going to look at all of you. Take a deep breath. As though an earthquake left a deep crack in the earth, there's a dividing line in my story. It's 2006, and my mom returns to Mexico. I am 16. To this point, my mother and I had been inseparable. We had even shared a bed together. And we also shared a lot of tears, being that there was always uncertainty and instability in our lives. But she always had the right scripture and the right hymn to sing to me to make me feel better. When she left, I had no idea that I was not going to see her for another 10 years. She left because one of my sisters, who was a citizen, was told that if my mom left to Mexico, she would return in 6 months. This ended up being faulty advice, and I didn't see her for 10 years. It was the hardest decision of my life to stay behind because she asked me to go with her. I decided to stay because my only avenue to stability was an education. I'm the youngest of 11 children and the first one to go to high school and graduate and had the dream and the vision of going to college. And I had seen other people in my community who constantly said, just do good in school and you can go to college and have a career and you can buy a house and you can buy a car. And I wanted that for my mother and myself. Being that since I was 4 years old, we had just been bouncing around from one house to another because we had to live with a sibling, whoever had space for us. And this brought tension to the house because having 2 extra mouths to feed was not something that they had planned. So this brought a lot of tension even between my mom and I, because I would remember we would be here in Redwood City and I would cry to her because my brother-in-law would constantly tell me that I was worthless, that I was never going to be anything in my life. And despite the fact that my mom would do all the child care and housekeeping, they treated her like a servant and not a family member. And being so young and seeing this really traumatized me, and I didn't want that for the rest of my life. I didn't want that for her, and I didn't want that for me. So my only pathway was a higher education. So I told her, I can't, Ama. I need to stay. I need to stay for me, and I need to stay for you. My senior year of high school, I applied for FAFSA like everybody else. And it turns out that I didn't qualify because I was undocumented. I didn't have a social security number, therefore I couldn't complete my application, and I couldn't get financial aid to go to college. I went up to my counselor and I told her my situation. I said, I've done everything I've been asked to do. I've been involved in my community, I have amazing grades, I'm very involved on campus, but the government says that they can't help me. Can you help me? She says, come back in a week and I'll let you know if I find anything. I come back in a week and I go into her office. My heart is pumping 110 times the normal speed because this is about to define my future and the future of my mom. She sits me down and she says, I found one scholarship. She obviously didn't look into it. It had the word Hispanic in it and she assumed that it was for me. This scholarship also required me to be a US resident or a citizen. Therefore, there was nothing left. She said, this is going to be the scholarship for you. And if this doesn't work out, I'm sorry. College is just not something for you to go through right now. When she said those words, all I could see at a far distance was my mom. It had been 3 years already since I had not seen her. And that reason and that purpose why I stayed behind was no longer valid. The day of graduation, I didn't want to get up from my seat. I didn't want to walk the stage because all I saw at the end of that stage was a barrier, a block at the end of that stage that said, this is it. This is as far as your road goes. And I wish that to nobody. Being that we came here as children and America is the only place we know as home, and to have that block at the end of high school and hearing all these things as a child, do good and you can go to college, and at the end not be true, was heartbreaking. I moved back to East Palo Alto, and it wasn't until I went to church and a very stubborn sister told me, why wasn't I going to college? What was I going to do with my life? And it was still something very difficult for me to talk about because I knew that college wasn't an option for me. I eventually opened up and I told her my situation, and she said, you can go to college. And then it took me a little bit to kind of digest what she had just said, because I thought to myself, how can this lady who's from my church know more than my counselor who's expected to know everything? She eventually put me in touch with her son at De Anza College, who took me to the first gala. It's called the Bay Area Gardeners Foundation, where they were giving scholarships to just undocumented students. And that changed my life. I saw hope again. That tunnel was no longer dark. I saw a little light at the end, and it was a glimpse of hope. I went to college that same fall that I graduated at Foothill, but the unexpected happened in 2009. My father was diagnosed with cancer. School became something that I couldn't really handle anymore. I had always been a good student, but after he got diagnosed with cancer, my grades was just starting to slip. I couldn't concentrate. I eventually dropped out of college. My father passed away in 2011, and it was a year shy from DACA, which allowed us to have, as Elliot mentioned, a permit to be here with safety from deportation, but also gave us opportunity to leave to our countries for humanitarian reasons. I, again, was not able to travel to Mexico to see my dad alive for the last time. Nor was I able to go to his funeral, to be there to support my mom through my father's loss. And again, I wish that to no one. Many times I thought, did I do something wrong? What have I done to deserve so much pain? And to this day, I still don't know. I still don't know if I did something wrong and why I had to go through all of that. But a year later, President Obama passed DACA, and I applied. I was able to go back to school. I started getting involved with technology. I had no idea how to code, but I applied for hackathons anyway. And that's what ignited a fire in me to see that technology can solve problems. In 2014, I applied for a competition called Voto Latino Innovators Challenge, which was open to anybody in the country who had a solution to a problem in their community. And I decided to create an app, to pitch it, not create it, because it was still like a thought just in my mind. So I said, okay, wouldn't it be great if there was an app that would help students find scholarships to go to college, and that they know that they have money available for them to go? Because when I was in high school, I didn't have that opportunity, or my counselors didn't have that knowledge. So what if we built this? I went to the competition and I was lucky to win first place. And I came back with $100,000 to create Dreamers Roadmap. So for all the techie, non-techie people in the room, you can definitely create an app if you have a good idea and a good story behind the reason why you want to create it. But in 2015, June 2015, I finally got my green card. My mom was still in Mexico. I was here. And I remember the day that I got it. It was my brother-in-law's birthday, and my husband got this really hot pink bag, and I'm like, oh my goodness, what prank is he gonna pull to his brother? Then he brings the bag to me and he's like, this is for you. I'm like, I don't want to open it. Something's gonna pop out of that bag. Like, I have no idea. And I open the bag and there's a yellow envelope. I pull out the paper and there it is. A plastic, silverish, greenish card with my picture. And at this point, I think I was like 7 months pregnant. So all I did was like hold my belly, and I started crying because all I saw in that picture was my mom. I'm like, okay, like this is it. Like there's nothing else holding me back. Like we're going. And I was pretty pregnant. I probably shouldn't have driven that much. And it was, I think, 13-hour drive. Like my hands were really sweaty. I would put up the window and then put it down, turn on the AC, then turn it off. And I was just thinking, like, I'm finally gonna see her. Like, is she still alive? Like, even those thoughts would come to my mind. Like, is it really gonna be her? And we crossed the border. And again, my heart was pumping despite the fact that I was crossing legally and I wasn't even coming back yet. I was just going to Mexico. And we pull up to the store and there she was. My mom with a little bit more like grayish hair. She's 70 something now, but she's held her posture very well. She looks great. And she looked exactly the same from when I last saw her. And here I am, everybody gets out and I'm in the front seat and kind of taking a breather. I open the door and with my big belly, I get off as careful as I can. And I just run to her. We both open arms and we hug and we cry. And we both shed tears of joy because for so many years, we hadn't been able to do that. I could now touch her silky hair. I could touch her face and it was really her. Like I did that to her quite a couple times just to make sure that she was real. And it was a beautiful feeling. And I felt very blessed to be able to have that opportunity to see her again and alive. And despite the fact that she's still not back with us, that is my ultimate dream. I continue to dream to have her with me because now I'm married. I have a 17-month-old baby. I rent this place in East Palo Alto, which is not all the way up there yet, but I want her back with me. So that is my dream, to be able to bring her back and be able to be the grandma to Eliana that I want her to be, as she was to all my other nieces and nephews. And thank you so much. That is my story.